Yo, dudes, B-Man from Verdicks here tonight with Denny and Nick. What's happening, fellas?
Same old, my
Hey, brother,
man.
man.
I wanted to talk to you guys about something that often is joked around about, but is really something that I deal with seriously. And I think that the world should take a little bit more seriously because it affects us all. And that's procrastination. People are always putting things off. I don't consider either of you a major procrastinator, but I'm sure there's a little bit of procrastination in your day to day. I know people joke about it, but for me, it's not about laziness and it's not about not wanting to do something. Like true procrastination is just the inability to do it. My brain puts up some kind of barrier that says this isn't going to get started because everything else around you is much more interesting at the moment. And it's not because I'm lazy and I have other things to do, so it's not about boredom. It's just my brain won't allow me to get started, and it feels like a real physical barrier. You guys ever run into that level of procrastination?
Yeah, for me, it's more with like just housework that I maybe don't want to do. Like
Hmm.
I never am a huge fan of like trimming bushes and stuff like that, like just that silly stuff. Like I feel great when it's done because then everything looks great. But I think marriage and being a parent and stuff like that like plays a lot into procrastination with things like that because you get so little time, right? Like in a given day, if you've got kids and all these other responsibilities, like you may be lucky if you get an hour to yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if I find myself with a free hour and a half or something, it's really hard for me to do the things that I know I probably should be doing versus the things that I'd rather be doing. So I often find myself doing that. Like, who wouldn't want to like veg out and play a video game for an hour versus go and trim some sticker bushes? Like, that's an easy thing for me. But what happens is I won't do the sticker bushes for like a month and a half after I should have, and then it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's twice as hard.
Yeah.
But you're not a procrastinator at work, and you probably weren't a procrastinator at school.
I think I definitely was in college, but I grew out of that with work. You and I talked about it before. A lot of the things that I like to do at work is probably if I have something hard that I know I have to do, that's usually how I start my day. By doing that hard thing first and getting it out of the way to get the ball rolling. And then that like anxiety is just gone. There's nothing worse for me in like a professional setting than having some BS hard project or conversation or thing I have to do hanging over my head. I can't concentrate. I'm sitting there doing it, and all I can think about is how that conversation is going to like just have it, just do it, just get it out of the way.
How about you, Denny? You a
Uh,
procrastinator?
yeah, I am. And it's just simple stuff. It's even, I was thinking, like you were saying, simple things. For me, it's mostly like timed things. I will procrastinate, like to commit to something, or to do something.
Yeah.
For me, like every year, you text me, Bri, every year. Uh, the seed and feed and the fertilizer, the Scott's program, it's on sale. Get it. It's cheaper than you'll ever find it, and start applying it. And I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Then the sale passes. Then the time for me to actually apply these things to my lawn passes. Then, like I just miss every one of those benchmarks. And then all year, all summer when I'm mowing the lawn, I'm like, this lawn looks like crap. It could look like Brian's if I just did what he told me to do. And I just stopped procrastinating and I just bought the product. I just did it when there was a sale, like it's just, and I don't know what it is. It's some of that, sometimes just like that block.
Yeah. And the block for me
But
mainly lives in the world of career and workplace
yeah,
because I don't mind doing things around the house. I find those rewarding. The procrastination at the workplace is the stuff that, again, I don't want to do or I find burdensome or I'm just distracted by other things. And that causes a lot of anxiety because it's me not wanting to do it and knowing that I have to do it that causes anxiety. And there's also the procrastination that has a deadline that you
Yeah.
have no choice but to cram for at the very end. And then
Yeah.
there's procrastination that doesn't have a deadline. Like I've been procrastinating starting to exercise, or I've been procrastinating on my diet, and those things compound. And so when you think about that, had you just started, had you just dieted 1 day and then 2 days and then 3 days, in 4 weeks, you have lost some weight and you're looking good
Right.
and feeling good.
Right.
It's just as easy to procrastinate and cause further harm to yourself by not starting, by not getting going. So for procrastinators, deadlines are scary, but what's really truly scary and what can really mess up your life is, the procrastination where there is no deadline.
Yeah.
And that's the
You
type
never
of
start.
procrastination that like leads to lower self-esteem. You're putting your health at risk. You're losing time. You're literally just burning your days, regardless of what you're trying to avoid. And you're definitely missing opportunities. You could be damaging relationships. Every time that your boss sees that you're underperforming or you're just handing it in on the day before it's due, like all of those things look bad and feel bad and create this negative atmosphere, which only compounds your procrastination worse. So it's funny to see how everybody deals with it in different manners. I don't know that there's a cure for procrastination, but we've talked about some tips and tricks. We started with the 10-minute rule. I know that Nick likes to send me messages to keep me on track and hold me accountable. I tried to do the same thing with Denny Shitty Lawn, but he's not listening. Other things that I've tried is just using like those simple gratifications that you want to pursue, hold those off and use them as rewards.
I think ultimately, like procrastination, when you boil it down to what it is, it's just a really, really, really bad habit, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And like,
yeah,
you can break bad habits, and there's books and all kinds of stuff dedicated to that sort of stuff, about breaking bad habits. The Huberman podcast had one using science on how to break bad habits. It's a mental game, and you can overcome it. But if you got to apply some science and a little bit of effort to it. And it's just like everything else, you can break that bad habit, but it's not something where like, if you decide to not procrastinate once, you can't just sit back and declare victory because you've been procrastinating for 40 years of your life, and then you decided to not procrastinate once. That doesn't mean that you've solved the problem. It's something you really got to look at and work on,
And that's the issue too, that if you're a career procrastinator, you kind of get good at it. So what you're really always doing is walking the tightrope of it all falling apart.
Yeah.
And like that is not a good way to live your life or your career or manage anything.
And you decide not to study for like an exam, but you still ace the exam. Have you learned any lesson?
Never.
You've learned, man, I could probably do this more often.
Yeah.
That's the tough part, like if you, like you said, if you get good at it, or if you manage to get by and thrive in that sort of environment, it's like, all right, why change a good thing?
So I guess what we're saying is there are different levels of procrastination. Be aware of when you're doing it. Be aware of how it's really affecting your life. Take a look at yourself at the end of the day, like we talked about. Are you doing your best? Are you having those self-actualizations? Are you addressing the hard truths? Addressing the hard truths and procrastination are tied hand in hand. Practice the 10-minute rule and, get into some other things. Explore why this is happening to you and take one step to see if you can figure it out. That's all we're asking. That's why we're talking about it. These things affect us. They got to be affecting you. We're going to keep going over this stuff. Check back on our website for more stuff. And until next time, shields up.
Shields up.